Hey, good morning, Gasaholics. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the Great American Auto Scene, part of Two Tired Guys Productions. Yes, that's us talking about cars and gas, a combined group of great automotive podcasts, award-winning podcasts, as a matter of fact. Talking about cars has been awarded a number of times, and recently, GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene, got awarded the .com award for Automotive Podcast Series. Yes, we did it. Ha ha! Our very first award. It's great. Now, we also got that award when we were part of Speed Scene Live, and our team there got the .com award a number of years ago. Now, GAAS, on its own, did it again. So it's kind of cool. So we have been awarded a platinum award. That's right. For podcasts. Out of 2,000 competitors, we were right there on top as a platinum company or podcast auto show. Yes, we are. All right, now moving on to bigger and better things. I don't know if it's bigger or better, but what the heck. Hey, when I was younger, I was younger. Really, honestly, I was younger years ago, back in my younger days. Anyway, I wanted an exotic car. Now, I was never going to be able to afford a real exotic. I mean, I could never get a Ferrari. Yeah, I could never get a Maserati. I couldn't get a Lotus. And I just couldn't get the kind of cars, the sporty type of cars that I really, really wanted. And Pete says he's here. All right, Pete Muriel has joined us. So what I looked at were kit cars. That's right. Manufactured cars that would replace the body on an existing car or came with its own frame and chassis, and you had to assemble them yourself. Sounded like a good idea to me. As a matter of fact, I had a friend who was the West Coast rep, Mark Markham, that was with Kelmark at the time. And he had a Kelmark GT. I got to drive the factory demo car. I was enthralled with this machine. It looked like a Ferrari. It got the fuel mileage of a Volkswagen. It also had the power of a Volkswagen, which was a little disappointing, but it was still cool. We went down the freeway. This thing was dead quiet. It was just the greatest little car you could ever get, and I wanted to build one. Now, there's also another car I wanted to build. It was the Fiberfab Aztec 7. Now, this was even nicer car. It had sharper lines, resembled a Alfa Romeo show car from back in the day, and it was just neat. Gull-wing doors, still Volkswagen powered, engine in the back, quiet inside, very stylish dashboard, pop-up headlights. It was just so cool. And the cost? A fraction of what a real exotic cost. Kit cars are not something new, though, and kit cars have been around since the 50s. Now, every country, it seems, has a kit car manufacturer or kit car manufacturers. There's hundreds of these guys going around the world building replicas because people like me can't afford the real thing or want something just a little bit different. Good morning, Lori. How are you doing this morning? All right, so let's take a look at one of the more popular ones first. And this one comes out of Great Britain. And it is a component car or a continuation car. Now, it is not considered a kit car because it has taken the design from Colin Chapman's Lotus 7 and continued on and improved it. So it is considered a component car in Great Britain, and it has the same style and dimensions as the original Lotus 7. It's a Caterham cars. They bought the rights to the Lotus. So it is, in all effect, a real Lotus. You can put a multitude of engines in it. It's a great little car. It is one of the cars that I would consider building. It's got some drawbacks, though. It was strictly made for race cars. Lori says American kit cars or British kit cars. Yes, both. All of the above. The Caterham is a British vehicle, and it is a wonderfully handling sports car. It weighs less than 2,000 pounds, has no windows, no roof, no heater, no air conditioning. It is a bare bones sports car, and if you're going to go fast around corners, this is the car to get. This is a true reproduction or continuation vehicle, and it is amazing. The Caterham also draws big money because it is a licensed continuation of the Lotus 7. And Caterham has built more Lotus 7s, or Caterhams, than Lotus actually built. All right, so every country, as I said, has got some sports cars. There are many copies of the Lotus 7. In the U.S., probably the most popular and most copied sports car was still British, but it was American, and it was kind of both. It was Anglo-American? I don't know. The Cobra. The Cobra kit car has been produced by a number of different companies, and many of them still in business. Factory 5 and Hillbank are probably the most noted that continue to build these as rollers, basically. You buy the body on the chassis, put your own engine transmission in it, paint it, upholster it, you got it, you're done, you're ready to go. Cobra kit cars, almost exact replicas of the original, and I believe one of these companies actually has the rights as to list them as a continuation vehicle. Something to look at if you are in that market. Now, Cobra cars are cool. They really are. But they're mundane to me because there's so many of them. So let's take a look at just the U.S. manufacturers of kit cars. And you got to think back to, these are not something new. These started back in the 1950s. And I'll start with one of them that I really liked, Devon. Now, Devon Enterprises was from 1955 to 1964, and they built a sports car that was kind of reminiscent of the Ferrari Testarossa. It was cool. It had similar lines. It looked great, but they also had others. There was a Devon Panhard that had different body work on it, and Devon kits. Now, the Devon kits were the ones that I really liked. I've seen a few finished, and they are going for some good money at these days. The original body price was around $295, and you mounted it on the chassis of your choice. You made the chassis, or you could use a variety of different chassis, including the tiny Crosley chassis. They also had a Volkswagen version of it. Now, it was a neat little sports car. Again, no windows, no roof. Lots of fun, though. All right, so let's go back and take a look at some of the other ones. And the ones that I liked from modern days, and modern days I say 1960s on, when they started putting them and making them more like real cars. Not necessarily, not real cars, it's a bad statement, but making them more like production cars. They had windows. Some of them rolled up. Some of them opened sideways. They had gull-wing doors, they had regular doors, they had, you name it, they were complete component cars. And in many cases, back when I was a kid, they mounted them on Volkswagen Beetle chassis. Why? Well, because the body unbolted easily, and it worked. The rear-engine Volkswagen engine setup allowed a multitude of bodies to be built on it, was inexpensive at the time, and they worked. Today, you find a lot of kits for the Pontiac Fiero, believe it or else. All right, so one of the car companies that I really liked back in the day was Fiberfab. Now, Fiberfab was a company that started out in the U.S. in 1964. Warren Bud Goodwin started the group, and he made some amazing cars, including one of the first GT40 replicas. Now, his GT40 was the early GT40, not the one most noted for winning Le Mans and such. So it was different, but it was also out of proportion. He did what he could, but it mounted on a Volkswagen chassis. That made it affordable to many, and he sold a lot of them, got his name on the map with that. There was another car he came out with called the Jamaican, and this fit on a multitude of chassis, including the Austin Healey. Interesting. It had a long nose, short deck, fast back, roll-up windows, windshield. You could put a heater, you could put air conditioning, you could put all the good stuff in it, and it looked like an exotic sports car. It was cool. Now, He also had, as I said, the GT40 replica. He had what was called the Aztec 7. That was my favorite. The Aztec 7 was based on the Bertone Carabo, an Alfa Romeo concept car in the 70s. Had gull wing doors, pop-up headlights. It was just cooler than can be. I got to ride in one. I got to see one being built, and it was one of those cars high on the list of vehicles I wanted to buy or build. Hi, Neil Panks. How are you doing from Great Britain? Now, as far as Great Britain kits, there was a Sterling, or Nova as it was sold in Great Britain. That was another one I wanted. This was, yeah, I can't make up my mind. What can I say? This was a cool car. It didn't have any doors, but the whole front, the driver's compartment canopy raised up. And this car was not based on any production car. It didn't look like any production car. It did bolt onto a Volkswagen chassis and had a monocoque section. It kind of scrunched together to make a very strong and solid car. The downside, well, the windows only popped open a little bit. There were no doors. Like I said, the canopy, the doors, there were no doors. Those side windows, the windshield, and roof would come up as one unit, either hydraulically or electrically, and you had to raise it to get out of the car. Not the best thing to do in the rain because you had to slide over the body to get out, but it was such a cool car. I've seen a number of them, and they were just dynamite-looking cars and inexpensive. Probably one of the more solid kit cars made. Now, there was another company that I really liked as well, and as I said, a friend of mine was part of it, and that was Kelmark. Now, Kelmark produced a kit car that resembled a Ferrari Dino. Again, it sat with a Volkswagen chassis. It had its drawbacks as well, as all kit cars do, because they're compromises made to manufacture. These aren't major manufacturers that made thousands upon thousands of cars. But it looked like a Ferrari. It had thick front windshield pillars. Maybe a bit of a blind spot. It had a storage compartment behind the driver's compartment that also helped block the noise from the Volkswagen engine that was in the rear. Now, they also had a V8 kit available. And there was a company making the chassis, and I don't know if it was Kelmark themselves, and it was Mid-Engineering was one of the companies, and it actually mounted a Tornado Oldsmobile setup in the middle of the car. So you got a V8 power plant, you got independent rear suspension, disc brakes, and you got a multitude of engines you could bolt up to the GM transmission, as long as it was a GM engine, I guess. But they were cool. I drove the Volkswagen version. You could put Corvair engines in the back as well. There was plenty of room. But I drove the Volkswagen version, and I loved it. Now, a couple of years ago, I found one for sale in Santa Barbara. I drove up there to see it. From the outside, it looked great, but the person had put a roll bar in it. Not a bad idea. But to do this, he cut out the back wall of the driver's compartment, eliminating the storage compartment, and the engine was right there making all sorts of noise. It also allowed the body to deform over time. I passed. But, man, I really wanted that car. Excuse me. But the Kelmark was just a neat car. And the Kelmark GT, very, very revered today. Got to find one. They're high on the list of kit cars to be purchased. Now, other car companies you may be familiar with, McBurney Coachcraft. If you watched that famous television show with the two detectives, Miami Vice, remember that? They drove a Ferrari Roadster. Remember that? It wasn't a Ferrari. No, really, it wasn't. It was the McBurney version of a Ferrari. Now, Sam is telling me that the Kelmark style was like a 904 Porsche. It was. A lot of people associated with the Dino Ferrari, but you know what? Bringing that up, you're right, Sam. It does remind me a lot with that front nose the way it was of the Porsche 904. Never thought of that. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. The McBurney was very, very accurate reproduction to an extent of the Ferrari. So accurate, Ferrari sued McBurney. Yes, they saw it on Miami Vice. They didn't like it. They filed a lawsuit against McBurney. McBurney sold his company to Carrera Coachworks. And guess what? They got a real Ferrari on Miami Vice. And it came from Ferrari. They wanted the real thing on there. So that was it. Now, back in the 50s and the 60s, there were other companies. Now, we talked about one just a moment ago, but another one that really, really produced some great cars was Myers-Manx. Now, a lot of people just think of them as a dune buggy company. They built the first dune buggy, and Bruce Myers, man, he got on the map with this thing. This thing was so popular, and there were so many copies of it, it was ridiculous. You shortened the Volkswagen pan about 11 inches. You put this body on it. You had yourself a great off-road vehicle. Yeah, Miami Vice had to destroy their old one. I know. What can you do? And they did it on the show, too, just to make it important. Yeah, Kellison. Mark McGeorge brings Kellison up. We'll get to them in just a little bit. And there was the Brazilian manufacturer, Puma. And they actually produced a production car. We called it a kit car because it was a fiberglass on a Volkswagen chassis. But let's get back to the guys at Myers-Manx. Now, Myers-Manx got known for his dune buggies, but he did produce a sports car. And I got to drive that thing, and that was even more affordable, but it was very low-tech, and it was more dune buggy with sports car styling. It was the Myers-Manx SR2. And I really liked that car. It was more affordable. It had a hardtop with a Targa removable center section. It was more stylish like a sports car, but still used that 11-inch chopped chassis. Yeah, the Puma. Even Sam remembers that car. This was a cool car. Alan Gonig is talking about the McCormick Coyote, which was kind of a McLaren copy. But we'll go into that. Let's see if we can find the information on the Puma here. Now, Ladowry was another sports car company back in the 50s. They were actually based out of British Columbia, Canada, not the United States, but they're listed as a United States company because they moved there in 1957. They produced another sports car that was kind of cool too, and a lot of them ended up in sports car racing. They were neat machines too, little two-seater, Cobra styling or type, but before the Cobra, before the AC Cobra ever came about. And it was neat. Now, the Victress Manufacturing Company ended up taking over things, but they produced some amazing little sports cars. You can find them today, and they're great. Now, we talked about Puma just a little bit because Mark McGeorge and Sam Fiorani brought that up. Puma was a Brazilian company that produced cars. Now, we call them a kit car here in the U.S. because in some cases, they came in without an engine. One way to circumvent the emission standards at the time. So it came in as an incomplete vehicle. They put a Volkswagen four-cylinder engine in it. It sat on a Volkswagen chassis, but this was a real production car. They made a sports car. It was a fastback. They made a roadster version as well. It was neat. Now, I've looked at a couple, and they are very desirable among Volkswagen aficionados because it was a component car. It was an assembled vehicle. You didn't buy it in pieces. The fit and finish was quite good for the time and for a component, or I guess you could call it a kit car, but it was just plain neat. And it's not listed as a kit car in accordance with the kit car manufacturers that we've been talking about. But the Puma was a nice, stylish, fiberglass fastback using the Volkswagen engine, and it was cool. So we had a lot of car companies, a lot of manufacturers of these, including, every country in the world. The Netherlands has the Burton and the Le Patron. Mexico has the Maseretta. Italy has ATS automobiles. Now, Hong Kong even has the Automobile Addiction Company. Automobile Addiction Company? Now, their cars are based on the Ferrari 250, Testarossas, I guess, and you can get them, you can find them, but they're not real popular or around that much. Italy has the ATS sports cars. Okay. Well, let's look at some of the others. Even New Zealand's got some cars, and some of them are just great. They've got a sports car that is totally unique. It looks kind of like a car you'd see running at Le Mans. Go back a few years, not the current GT series or prototype series, but it looks like a prototype series car from the days of the Lolas and the Ford GTs, the original ones. It is neat. It's got gull-wing style doors, and it just looks great. South Africa has Birkin cars. Now, Birkin makes a Lotus-type vehicle as well, and it's sold through Lotus dealers there. It's called the S3 Roadster, and it is a Lotus 7 basic copy. Now, we go to the United Kingdom, as I said before, and they've made a lot of kit cars, and one of the reasons they came out with a kit car was to circumvent their taxing system. However, the government got involved, and they put a certification process in for these cars for safety reasons, they said. Okay, so they make the cars, these kit cars. They are checked for vehicle safety, and they have to be registered as such with the United Kingdom's Department of Vehicles. Now, they can get an approval, but here's the catch. If it is a replica of a 1973 or older vehicle, it avoids the road tax. So they did succeed. They got it going. Robert Jean's talking about the Devon Jr., or Robert Jean Devon Jr., a car named after you. How about that? But America and Great Britain probably have the highest number of kit car manufacturers in the world. And they made some amazing kit cars, from GTs to replicas of British-inspired sports cars, like the Blakely. Yeah, Blakely. There's also the MGTD replica that Fiberfab put out. The Midgie, as they called it. There are so many different vehicles. Factory 5, as I said, is one of the Cobra manufacturers, and they have a car called the GTM Supercar. A whole different design by them, and it does resemble the GT or the prototype cars of years gone by. Not the current crop of cars, but the cars that, raced in the 70s and the 80s up until maybe the 90s. Sterling Sports Cars, we talked about that. McBurney Coachcraft, Myers-Manx, Pengra, turbocharged, water-injected, long-nose Pinto. Ever seen one? I have. Had pop-up headlights. They even sold them through Ford dealers. It was a turbocharged four-cylinder with an extended nose. The front end looked something like, at the fender side anyway, a Pantera of the side. So that's why they called it the Pengra. I've seen one at the Ford show. It's kind of interesting. There was a Blueberry box. Yeah, and this was a van based on a Volkswagen chassis. As a matter of fact, our friends over at Galpin Motors just restored a Blueberry box for the comedian, the ventriloquist. Yeah, look it up. You can check it out there. So kit cars have been a part of the automotive scene for decades upon decades. And many of them, made some substantial inroads. Some of them were used on road courses as race cars. Fiberfab had their version of a 63 Corvette that runs in Sports Racer. Yeah, the Brubaker box was so cool, Sam. And if you watched Galpin Motors, their TV show on Discovery, you can see them restoring one of these. They did it for... my mind's going blank on the ventriloquist's name, but he's funnier than can be. And he just found one, and they restored it. And they even found the man who started Brubaker to guide them on the restoration. So a lot of kit cars, a lot of variety, from vintage looking to GT looking to amazing one-offs that were in the mind of the manufacturer. All right, guys, you have a great day. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas, the morning edition. Thanks for tuning in. You are a gasaholic. And don't forget our sponsors, the people that help bring gas to you each and every day. Yeah, Jeff Dunham. You're correct, Sam. That's the name I was looking for. I had the D part. I just couldn't put it all together. But yes, Sam Ferrini watching us right now. And Jeff Dunham just did a Brubaker box. He's a car crazy guy, too. He's got some neat ones. He even has a Gremlin, believe it or not. Yeah. He's got one. All right. GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene, the award-winning podcast that you're watching right now. Thank you. The .com award. We just received it yesterday. You guys have a great day. Don't forget our sponsors. Moon Eyes, Irwindale Speedway, Irwindale Drag Strip, Valley Head Service. And as a matter of fact, they're working on a cylinder head for me right now for a Morris Minor Woody. Morris Minor Traveler is what the correct name is. A little station wagon, wood-bodied. They're putting the cylinder head together, fixing it, getting it back so we can get this car running. It is at the Murphy Museum. Hopefully I'll have this thing back together in the next couple of weeks. And Dave, the owner of the museum, can take it out and have a good drive with it. All right, thank you very much. And don't forget Service Tech, the people that bring you the equipment you need to work on the cars you've got in your garage, whether it's a lift or just the equipment, the basic equipment to support your repairs. Pete Muriello says the Pengra was putrid. Yeah, it kind of was interesting back in the day. You guys have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene, part of Two Tired Guys Productions. Take care, and it'll be on YouTube in just a little bit. Tell your friends about it, and iTunes for the audio version. Take care, folks.